What is going down, Niner Empire? Danny G, TV in the house. The Niners got the Washington football team tomorrow. Both teams are 5-7, and as of course the Niners fell to the Buffalo Bills on Monday night last week, 34-24, and now they face their former quarterback Alex Smith and the Washington football team. And of course, they are the Washington football team. They're not the Washington Redskins. And I apologize for anyone that may have been offended by me saying that word. I mean, yes, I do not think it was a good name to have, honestly. Like, it's a name that should have been changed, years ago. So it just seemed kind of odd that 2020 would be the year that they would finally change it after, well, that being their name since 1932, but, it's... And hey, I personally think they didn't need to change the name. They just needed to change the logo. I mean, look, Redskin, potatoes, like, that would have been a good name. But I just think it's a very, very weird that they went through that whole offseason. They announced in July that they were changing the name, and yet they couldn't just come up with a name before the start of the season, and so they're just the Washington football team. They're the team with no name, but hey, that team with no name is on a 3-game winning streak. That team with no name, despite the fact that they might be 5-7, have the same record as us, and right now it looks like we most likely will not make the playoffs. Never say never, right? But does not look too good for us. Well, the Washington football team has the same record as us, and, well, the NFC East is so bad, they could very well win that division. They knocked off the 11-0 Pittsburgh Steelers last week, also on Monday night, in an upset. So they're on fire, and they have the momentum going their way. They're a good team, and it's going to be tough for the Niners if the Niners want to make the playoffs. They definitely have to win out, but it's not looking too good. It's looking like they're not going to be able to make it this year because the NFC West is so tough. But that time will come when it will come. Focus is on tomorrow, and the main part that I want to get into in this video is the former 49ers quarterback, Alex Smith, who is the leader right now with the Washington football team. He is the leader of that team, and he has had many struggles throughout his career with the 49ers from 2005 to 2012, but his last couple years were something special. And he's just an all-around class act. And 2 years ago, in November of 2018, November 18th, 2018, and keep in mind, this is one of the craziest coincidences ever. Exactly 33 years to the date, Joe Theismann breaks his leg, quarterbacking the Redskins, same stadium, same team. And it's considered one of the most gruesome injuries of all time. Fast forward 33 years later, and we see Alex Smith. He gets sacked by J.J. Watt, and his leg just absolutely fractures. His tibia and fibula is broken, and he has to have intense surgery, and it gets so bad that he came somewhat close, what's been reported, of possibly losing his life if they were not able to stop the leg from bleeding, because, oh, man, he could have lost his leg, he could have lost his life on it was actually both Kareem Jackson and J.J. Watt that both sacked him, and just his leg just landed, they hit his leg in just kind of an awkward position, and freak accident happened, and he suffers a serious injury, a gruesome injury. It almost looks like that's the end of his career right there. There was a documentary made about that I have not watched yet, but I definitely need to watch it, called Project 11 on ESPN 30 for 30, talking about Alex Smith's journey back, as this year Alex Smith was able to resume play for the Washington football team and has now just led them to a 3-game winning streak. Alex Smith is an absolute warrior. Alex Smith was the first quarterback as a little kid that I ever watched. I never got to see Joe Montana or Steve Young, the two greatest quarterbacks the 49ers have ever had. I did not get to see Jeff Garcia. Alex Smith was the first quarterback that I watched as a 49ers fan. He was drafted in 2005. And well, there's only a few players still playing from that 2005 draft, and one of them happens to be good old Frank the Tank right here, Frank Gore, who's still playing. Unfortunately, his team, the New York Jets, are winless, but he is tearing it up, and I would love nothing more than to see him actually play his final season, because he says that if the Jets go 0-16, he's retired. He's not retiring. He's coming back for another year. So the logistics of it might not seem realistic right now, but if somehow they could cut Tevin Coleman and sign Frank Gore for a final season, that would be special, and boy, would that give off some good vibes. But back to the point, man. Both Alex Smith and Frank Gore are true warriors. Alex Smith just recovering from that injury miraculously and returning when everyone thought that his career was over. Heck, people thought maybe his life could have been over if he did not have some really good doctors that were able to treat that leg. Alex Smith, as a 49ers quarterback, had a lot of struggles. 2005, he was drafted number 1 overall, and the Niners were forever criticized for not taking the Chico, California kid, the University of California, Berkeley stud, Aaron Rodgers, with that number 1 pick, who, of course, ended up having much success as a Green Bay Packer after Brett Favre left, who, of course, has a Super Bowl ring with the Green Bay Packers and is still one of the best quarterbacks to still play the game today. But, Alex Smith, of course, had 7 different offensive coordinators throughout his career. So if Aaron Rodgers would have been put in that same position, having a different offensive coordinator basically every year, then who knows if he would have been able to thrive as well as he did in that learning from Brett Favre, sitting through all those years behind one of the greatest of all time, Brett Favre, and in a good coach team as well. So you could argue that maybe Aaron Rodgers would not have been the same Aaron Rodgers that he was, and maybe he would have struggled, in a similar way to how Alex Smith did. But who knows? Who knows? But 2005, Alex had a horrible year. He threw 11 interceptions, and his only touchdown pass was to Brandon Lloyd. 2006, and actually keep in mind that late 2006, early 2007 was the first time that I started following sports. I was 9 and then turned 10 in January 2007. And 2006 was probably the first year that I watched the 49ers a little bit. Alex improved a lot that year. He had some good wins. The Niners were 7-9, and they actually beat the Denver Broncos in the final game of the season. They upset them, and they ended up ruining their playoff hopes. Just gonna fast forward to 2009. The Niners are actually started off 2-1. Sean Hill had 2 good games to start off. Actually 3. They would have won that 3rd game if Brett Favre didn't have that miracle throw at the end. And to be honest, I personally still to this day think that Sean Hill should have been given another chance. Of course, he was benched in that Texan game after struggling and having a bad game the game before against the Falcons. And after that, Alex was the quarterback of the 49ers again until 2012, which I will get into later. But I still think that Sean Hill should have been given another chance because he looked pretty damn good at the beginning of that year. He had a couple bad games, but he was still a good quarterback. And I'm really surprised they did not get another chance. But anyway, Alex ends up leading the Niners to 8-8, their first non-losing season in many years. 2010, though, they're starting off 0-4. They say they start off 0-4, and they're trying to win their first game, and Alex is just struggling on Sunday Night Football on October 10, 2010, against the Philadelphia Eagles, the same day as the San Francisco Giants got a big win in the NLDS against the Atlanta Braves on an error by Brooks Conrad. of course, they ended up winning the World Series that year. That same night, 10-10-10, Alex Smith is doing so bad that Candlestick Park is literally chanting, "We want Carr! We want Carr! We want Carr!" referring to the backup David Carr, who actually did end up starting a couple games after that, I believe, and actually Troy Smith from Ohio State ended up starting some games. He actually won a couple, but Alex was actually given the opportunity to start again at the end of the year. And of course, Mike Singletary got fired after the Niners went 6-10, although they did almost make the playoffs because the NFC West that year was just like the NFC East this year. But then everything changes. Jim Harbaugh, the stud head coach from Stanford, right up the road, was the new head coach, and he just shocks the world, and the Niners end up going 13-3 in his first season after going 6-10 the year before. In the 2011-2012 NFC divisional game, Alex Smith, not once but twice, will lead the Niners on 2 comeback drives with the game on the line.
Williams wide left, Crabtree slot left, Gore goes slot right, empty backfield, shotgun Smith, Saints bring extra man, Alex going to boot to his left and run, he's going to run it 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown, do you believe it? What a play, the play of dreams, Smith in a gun with Gore in his left hip, 3rd down, Alex takes the snap, Alex looking, got it, post, and it's got it, touchdown, touchdown 49! Vernon Davis with the play of his life. Alex Smith with the play of his life. And the 49ers are 9 seconds away from playing for the NFC Championship. Can you feel Candlestick?
Former announcers Ted Robinson and Eric Davis on the call. That was just incredible. Like Ted said, never doubt Alex Smith again after that. They go to the NFC Championship game, and they come close to making it to the Super Bowl if it wasn't for that Kyle Williams fumble. And then, despite the fact that the Niners were 13-3 and Alex Smith had a damn good year, a lot of Niner fans were still not sold on him. And when, of course, the Indianapolis Colts released Peyton Manning, one of the best quarterbacks of all time, they definitely were chirping about. The Niners were definitely trying to get him. He ends up signing with the Broncos, and so Alex Smith signs a 3-year deal. 2012, Alex has one of the best quarterback ratings in the NFL, one of the best completion percentages, and what ends up being the last game that he'll ever start, the last full game that he'll play as a 49er. He leads the Niners to a victory Monday night in Arizona, the same stadium that he'll play against the Niners tomorrow. And they end up starting off 6-2 that year. And then the next game against the Rams in the first half, Alex suffers a concussion. And Colin Kaepernick, who of course will be one of the best known sports public figures, but it was the first time that he got to, play quarterback in the NFL's regular season when Alex got that concussion. The Niners ended up tying that game against the Rams, but then the next game against the Chicago Bears, Kaepernick, he makes his first NFL start, and he just absolutely tears it up. And Jim Harbaugh never looked back. Colin Kaepernick was the starter throughout the remainder of that year. Of course, they make it to the Super Bowl, and although Jim Harbaugh kind of said at first he didn't want to rush Alex back, and that Alex was probably going to end up being the starter, Colin just kept getting better and better and better, and at the time, I'm not going to lie, I kind of wanted Kaepernick to be the starter because as a Niner fan, I was 15 then, and since I was 10, all I saw was Alex Smith, kind of struggle throughout most of his career. Of course, the year before he was 13-3, but he's still just kind of like how Jimmy Garoppolo last year making it to the Super Bowl did not A lot. He did not. He still hasn't sold a lot of Niner fans, and that's kind of the same way that Alex Smith was back then. And Colin Kaepernick just looked really good. He was mobile with his legs. He looked unstoppable. Since he was drafted by the Nevada Wolfpacks in 2011, he was expected to be the starter. I I think that was still the right move looking back, but I could imagine a scenario of where Colin has that good game against the Bears, but maybe he starts to struggle a little bit and Alex becomes a starter again, that Alex actually does lead the Niners to a Super Bowl victory. That could have happened. Colin also could have won it too. He came close. He led them to a comeback, after they were down so much in that Super Bowl. But I also think that if somehow Alex was a starter for a few years after that, and then Kaepernick was just on the bench and got to learn from him, that maybe Colin could have started, a few years later, and he could have been in his prime and doing well. And in 2016, when, of course, he made, the world headlines by kneeling for the national anthem for police brutality, maybe he would have been playing so well that the NFL would have had to, keep him in the league. A team would have had to sign him because they just could not have, missed out on having him be the starter because of how good he would have been. Of course, Colin regressed and he ended up being really bad after his first two really good seasons. But, part of Colin's success was, he coached, or Alex Smith, along with Jim Harbaugh, coached Cap a lot in that 2012 season when Alex was on the bench for Kaepernick. He mentored him, he guided him, he taught him, a lot of skill sets. And if somehow Kaepernick could have been on the bench for Alex Smith for many years, maybe he could have been, one of the greats of all time and definitely would still be playing today. But hey, that's just another scenario that I'm thinking of, because who knows what could have happened differently. But anyway, the Niners later today, as when this video will be uploaded, they got the Washington football team in Arizona. It's going to be a tough one, and it's just really too bad that this game is not at Levi's Stadium in a normal year where we have fans, because Alex Smith would definitely get a standing ovation. Danny G is out. Peace.